Hi folks, welcome back to the bench. Today we've got this absolutely gorgeous Yamaha F310 that's been bought in by one of our customers. He's decided to start playing and thought he'd treat himself, but out of the box the setup isn't quite right. It's not as comfortable to play as we know we can get it. So he's brought it into us today. We thought we'd document the process so you can have a little go yourselves at home. We'll be breaking all of the steps into small chunks that you'll be able to look through. They will be time-stamped below if there's a particular section you'd like to focus on. If you'd like to take us from the start to the very end, we're going to break every step down in an easy-to-follow system. We're going to be showing you a with tools and a without tools, so you haven't got to rush out and buy 1,000 things to do this job. Some of them you'll have lying around the house. There might be the odd tool here or there that's needed, but most of this can be done without. It will certainly quicken up the process using one or two tools that we've got. So we'll jump to the very first step now, which will be to get this tuned up. The first stage in any setup process will be to tune the guitar to pitch, and that can be anything of your desire. It could be standard tuning, perhaps you favour an open tuning or even a drop tuning. But once you're tuned up, I'm going to use a little clip on here. We can then get rocking onto our next step, which will be to look at our truss rod position. We're all tuned up. That now means we can jump onto our truss rod assessment, and this is a very important part of the job. This allows the string to rotate thoroughly. If the string's not in the right position with the right clearance, we can get buzzing and noises that are not going to be favourable when you're playing the guitar. We will use our truss rod to manoeuvre the neck into a certain position to allow correct spacing, which will give us maximum projection and maximum clarity. You might favour something a little bit higher or lower, so please feel free to experiment with this. We're going to show you a method without tools, and then I'm going to use some feeler gauges just to quicken up the job, but don't worry, either way you'll be absolutely fine. So for this segment you can use your finger, a capo or a plectrum. So if you don't have any of these at hand, we can still do this. For ease of the video I will be using a capo today, and we're going to just clamp down at the first fret. So with that clamp down, I'm going to press down on the E string at our 13th fret. I'll be bringing the camera around and we're going to have a little look at our clearance to see what position we're in so far. So I'm pressing down just out of shot here, and we're going to be concentrating on this 6th fret. I'll be zooming in and we're looking for a very small bounce. And as you can see there, we've got quite a bounce. That is a lot more than we need. We're going to show you now with our feeler gauge. So I'm now using a feeler gauge. This will be 0.08 of an inch or 0.20 millimetres for those that want to measure that way. And what we're aiming to do is have the string very lightly touch our gauge. I'm now going to reposition my thumb at the 13th fret. As you can see, there's absolutely loads there. We've got far too much clearance. Let's make our adjustment. As you can see, we've used our gauge and our eyes, but this is the first time we will need a tool. This will be our Allen key and a little top tech tip for any of these setups if you're regularly maintaining guitars. A little bit of tape around this, you can help identify the correct key for the guitar. That saves me hours when I've been looking in the toolbox. As we make these adjustments, we're going to go very slow and steady because any excess movement, we can cause some damage to the guitar. For this element, we're going to use the simple term of lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So my opening to the truss rod, which I'll zoom in just a second, is going to be here. We don't want to loosen it. We've already got too much. So that would be me going to the left. We want to tighten the gap, tighten our neck. So I'm now going to go to the right. We'll go just a couple of movements and let's see if we can reduce that string height. And just inside that hole there is where our truss rod is. We're going to make that initial adjustment now. For this, I'm going to make just a couple of adjustments. We're going to tighten the neck once. I'm going to tighten the neck twice. That now has gone quite loose. And as I make these small adjustments, you will feel the neck just tightening slightly. I can feel that binding. I'm going to make probably one more. That's starting to get a little bit tighter. Let's remeasure and check where we are. We can repeat this as many times as needed. So if you are unsure, do go back and check. Slow and steady wins the race with this one. And our feeler gauge is fitting in there absolutely perfectly. With that done, we can move on to our next step. So now that we have got the neck in the correct alignment, we need to measure the string's action. And this will be the height that the strings are from the fretboard. Any adjustments we will make with this saddle in a minute, we'll be zooming in to show you. I'm going to use a card for this segment just to gauge exactly where we are. We can do it once again with our eyes. It will be just a little bit easier with our gauge card. Let's measure our current action and we can show you where we're going to go and how we're going to reduce the height. But then folks, I'm going to introduce you to my gauge card. This is my pointy tool for reference. We are on an acoustic guitar, and as you can see, we've got different strengths of action. We've got low, low, medium, 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 high. This part at the bottom is going to measure where we currently are. So an acoustic on the low E string, 2.8 would be considered high. So that looks like 3.25 at our 12th fret, and that is a lot higher than what it needs to be. We're going to look to reduce this down to around about 2 millimeters, which will be our low medium. And again, these are all preferential, folks. How you have your tea and coffee might differ from mine, but these are some of the most common specs to follow. And just try coming down slightly. If you don't like it, you can come down a bit more. You can always reduce, but once you've reduced, we can never add it back on. So slow and steady, try each step. You might prefer medium, you might prefer medium high, you might like it very low. Whatever suits you, but slow and steady, once again, will win the race. Yes, we can unwind these by hand. I'm going to cheat and use a little bit of a tool today to speed up the process. Another top tech tip, leave that capo once again where it is. As we unwind these, the strings will stay stationary. They won't be popping out, hurting us, hitting us in the eye, and it saves us the job of having to thread them back through afterwards. That saved me on countless times. So we can lift the strings now, pull the saddle out, everything's absolutely perfect. We know what our measurements were from earlier on. I would always encourage you to write them down. We can take a look at where we'd like to go to and make that mathematical equation of how much we've got to reduce. I'm going to show you two methods here. One will be with a file to get some of the excess material off, and then we're going to use some sandpaper just to bring it a little bit flusher and get a better finish on it. If you haven't got a file, we can just do this with sandpaper. It is a little bit more long-winded. So here is our saddle that we've just removed. We've got our measurements from previously, and a top tech tip again will be to measure with a pencil line the difference that we want to remove. It's not essential, but if it's your first time doing this, it can help with removing the right amount, because once we've done too much, we can't put it back on. I've got a rough idea of where we're going to go, but for those at home, either a pencil marking or a Sharpie pen, anything just to give you a guide. I'm now going to remove some of the excess material just with a few passes, and again we're trying to keep as straight as possible. We don't want to be going in at any angles. It's important that we keep this nice and flat. That's going to give us the best overall result. So I'm going to reduce this down now, then I'll get my sandpaper out and we'll just talk about tidying it up very slightly. And to now tidy this up, we're going to use a flat surface. That is very important. And as I'm taking this back and forth, about 10 or 15 passes, and then I will swap and turn around. This will ensure that we're not taking more off one side than the other, and it keeps it nice and flat. So I'm going to go a few passes, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It doesn't have to be exactly 15. We'll spin it round and just keep it as consistent as you can. This will reduce it down evenly. We won't have any sloped edges, and it will be making perfect contact when we reposition in a minute. I've got a little bit more to do. I'll see you in just a second. We've done our truss rod, that is now set perfectly. We've got our saddle reduced down to our desired element, or perhaps your desired measurements. The final step now, before we get rocking, we'll be looking at our nut. This is at the other end of the guitar, so where our strings sit at the headstock. We need to check that the slots are cut correctly. This will ensure better playability, better vibrational transference for projection, and lastly, when we're pressing down at the early stages of the guitar, frets 1, 2 and 3, we want it to be comfortable. So we're going to zoom in. Again, we can use our eyes. It will be a little bit easier with our gauge that I'll use in just a minute. Just a word of warning, this section will require some specialist tools. We're going to use some nut files, and these are measured appropriately for the string widths to ensure we're cutting cleanly and accurately. If we go too far with this, the strings can be too low, and it can then make it very difficult to play. We'll have a lot of buzzing. So this is a very precautionary measurement. I will show you as best as I can, but you will need a couple of tools for this segment. And this will be my gauge for my E and A strings. Those are the measurements for anyone that wants them on the screen there in thousandths and millimeters. So this will cover our first two. We're looking for it to just be gently in contact, and as you can see, there is a huge gap there. We're just going to reduce the height of the nut, and we can show you how we do that now. So I'm going to loosen my E-string now, and a final top tech tip for you will be to use some low tack masking tape or painter's tape. We don't want to scratch any of the finish. We can put this just on the board and it'll ensure that we are cutting cleanly. We're not going to damage the guitar. With any of these cutting segments, it's important to go at a slight angle. We're going to cut away and keep the string at a downward position, just a few passes, nice and steady. String back on, check your measurements, and you'll be good to go. You can always repeat these steps. Slow and steady wins the race. I think we're now at our desired position. Let's get it back on and remeasured. And as we can see with our gauge in situ, we've got no bounce at all, which is perfect. If we do remove the gauge, we've got just a very small bounce. That is absolutely wonderful. We'll now repeat the process across the other strings, and with that done, we can conclude our setup. So there we have it, folks. We've got one Yamaha acoustic all done. Well done for watching today, and I hope you do have a little go yourself. It's important to follow the steps as we have done. We can't be cutting the nut without the saddle being correct, and we don't want to sand that saddle without the truss rod being in position. So we've tuned, we've truss rod, we've done our saddle, and we've cut our nut. Each of the steps you can watch again, and remember, as I've said a few times, slow and steady wins the race. It's no good rushing any of them, because if we go too far with our truss rod, we can cause some damage. If we foil too flat with our saddle, you're then going to have to replace it. So you can always take more off. If you do have any questions, just drop us a line. We'll always do our best to help you out. Whether you attempt the work yourself or use a qualified guitar tech, you can at least appreciate what goes in to make these play better than ever. But with this done, Andy's ready to rock and roll again. He can take over the world. So you watch future months, he'll be a rock and roll star. The tools that I've used today on the video, there will be some links below for them. They are affiliate links. There'll be no extra cost to yourself, but going through them does just support the channel. We do receive a very, very small commission for them, and it just helps keep these videos going. So if you'd like to get yourself some tools, do click the links below. And if you do have any assistance needed with them or any questions, just drop us a line. I'll do my very best to get back to you as quickly as I can. As always, thank you very much for joining us. I'm Jamie, your local tech, and as I always say, another day, another guitar. See you soon.